The greatest state in all the United States of America, I'm sure for all you folks who are here from out of town, welcome to Virginia. Welcome to the great city of Richmond. I thank you, Mayor, for having such a beautiful day for us here today, which is great. The First Lady Dorothy and I have opened up the Governor's Mansion. If you want to stop by and visit it, our historic 202-year-old mansion today, please do it. I want to first thank everybody who was involved in putting this together today. I want to thank Ed Ayers. I want to thank everybody on the committee. I want to thank all the actors and reenactment folks for the great work that you have done. It has been a spectacular couple days. You think of all those young men who fought way back when, 150 years ago, and today we are the greatest nation on earth. And I do want to recognize those men and women in uniform today who are fighting for our great country. So give a round of applause to our great service folks who are here with us today. "150 years ago yesterday, on April 3rd, 1865, the 80-year-old Richmond mayor, Joseph Mayo, set out in a dilapidated carriage in search of a federal officer. He carried a scrap of wallpaper bearing a written request that the Union troops please come in and take control of the city and put out the fires set by the retreating Confederate troops. While many Richmonders viewed that moment with despair, their money was now worthless. Hundreds of their homes had been burned to the ground. But in fairness, the truth is that they had lived with hunger and uncertainty for many, many years. April 3rd was a day of new beginnings. Of course, 250 years of slavery ended that day. The African-American men and women were freed that day, recognized the truth that immediately took place 150 years ago. Lumpkin Jail, which is not far from us here, and other slave markets were thrown open. And the occupants rushed out singing, "Gonna praise God till I die." You could hear it all over Richmond. They grasped at the sleeves of the African-American Union soldiers who were marching down Broad Street, calling out the names of sons and daughters who had escaped or been sold away, hoping for information about their whereabouts. One African-American Army chaplain was reunited with his mother on this day, 20 years after separation. And then 150 years ago today, Abraham Lincoln walked where we are here today. Abraham Lincoln told the former slaves who were gathered at that statue not 30 yards from where we're standing, at the statue of George Washington in Capitol Square, that they had no master now but God. And tomorrow on April 6th, amazingly, another Army chaplain was the first African American to preach in a Richmond church, an act that had been illegal just 3 days before. The men and women who were freed on this week 150 years ago responded as most of us would have done. They wanted to be with their families. They wanted to worship. But they also wanted something very important. They wanted an education in order to start a new life. The demand for education was immediate and overwhelming. Slaves had been barred from learning to read and write, and they recognized that this was the key to their future empowerment. Lumpkin Jail was turned into a school. After the owner had died and his widow, a former slave herself, gave the property over to a minister. As many as you know, that school eventually became Virginia University. The Freedmen's Bureau helped establish more than 200 schools across the state that taught an estimated 50,000 African Americans in the first 5 years after the war. Teachers, many of them from the North, came down to help. But the first schools were started by African Americans here in Virginia, and a third of the teachers were former slaves. The hunger for an education seems natural to all of us, but at the time, folks, it was astounding. Thomas Jefferson's vision for a public school system had been forgotten by later generations. At the start of the Civil War in 1861, Virginia had a population of 1.25 million, but unfortunately only 67,000 were in school. A true system of public education was not adopted until after the war, and it was accomplished thanks to the actions of African American delegates who helped draft our state constitution in 1869. African American legislators later that year passed a law establishing a superintendent of public instruction in the State Board of Education. In those days of promise after the war, African Americans envisioned universal suffrage of public education for all Virginians. Folks, we know the rest of the story. Later state constitutions and laws would replace those ideals with poll taxes and segregated schools that were separate and clearly unequal. The poll tax cut the number of qualified African American voters in Virginia from 147,000 to just 21,000. Thank goodness the Civil Rights era helped us move closer to those earlier ideals. But today's ceremony, folks, is a reminder to all of us that we still have unfinished business and the goal of real equality in our nation. And just remember 150 years ago right here, the Richmonders who tasted freedom for the first time in April 1865 understood the importance of the right to vote and the right to an education. But it seems that sometimes we're afraid to use those same rights to reach our full potential. Or worse, we are too apathetic to use them to reach our full potential. In last year's November election, just 42% of the eligible voters went and cast a ballot. That would be unfathomable to the folks who stood here 150 years ago. Unfathomable. Today in Virginia, 52% of our 3- and 4-year-olds are not in school. We need to do a better job here and think what the folks did here 150 years ago. We must have the courage to ask what kind of Commonwealth do we want to be in another 150 years. We need to be committed, folks, to be the best possible citizens that we can be. I'm happy to report that we have shattered all records in the last year on the restoration of civil and voting rights for Virginians, over 6,500 so far, and I'm just warming up. I promise all of you that we will continue to fund and make sure we have pre-K for every child. So in conclusion, when we think about what's happened here, I ask all of you to join with me today to renew our commitment to a vision that those folks had here 150 years ago, their first day of freedom, after 250 years. Think of their message, think of their dreams, and think of their ideals. As those free men and women marched out of Lumpkin's jail 150 years ago. So folks, I ask you to use that. Let us all rekindle that spirit and take it to the next level to make us not only the greatest state in the United States of America, but we are the greatest nation. So God bless you. God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia, and God bless the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America. Thank you very much.